Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, where today we meet Ed Parker, Mr. Karate. In the last many episodes, we've been tracking Elvis's journey through the world of karate, which he was introduced to in the military when he was serving in the army. Specifically overseas, he began to take lessons from a man named Jürgen Seidel. And when he returned to the United States, after his service, he was still interested in karate. He was still practicing, probably daily, and he wrote a letter to Jürgen thanking him for teaching him about the martial arts and telling Jürgen that he was still interested. And shortly afterwards, in 1960, he met Ed Parker, who is a huge name in the karate world. And we're going to get to know Ed better as soon as we come back from this song that tells about Elvis's journey to receive his first black belt, Crucible of a Warrior.
Feel a flame, hammer in hand, carved out his name. 16 and airborne boots in the dirt, jumping through walls, unbaptized and hurt. Karate in Japan, fists like steel, champion of honor, deadly and real. Sensei, a warrior's no room for doubt. You wear the G or you train and come back. Your eyes a crucible, baby, not a showbiz belt. You bleed, you break, you feel a warrior's felt. Elvis hit the mat, but he rolls with a roll. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior, forged in Hank's domain. 30 throws, not dances a fight. Bones to set, boards shattered on sight. Shudo elbow, fingertip flame. Every strike a prayer, every cane a name. 6 weeks of fire, no cameras, no fame. Just sweat and bruises, no one played tame. Saw came in, fist like a stone, said put him down, break ribs if it's known. It's a crucible, baby, not a velvet crown. You fall, you crawl, but you don't stay down. Elvis hit the mat, but he rose with the raw. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior, forged in Hank's domain. All eyes watched the king that day. Would he crumble or would he stay? But Hank saw it, war in his eyes. Not a quitter, but a fighter who rise. From Hollywood lights to dojo dust, Elvis earned it not on fame, but trust. No stunt, no script, just grit and bruise. Black belt truth, not a headline roots. A crucible, baby, not a stage or set. You earn every inch, every beat of sweat. Elvis hit the mat, but he rolls with a roar. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior. They burned through the fire, broke through the fear. In the dojo, legends and kings stood clear. Crucible of a warrior, Elvis was here.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today, we're going to hear echoes from Ed Parker, from Elvis, and from those who knew Ed Parker. Hello, Gunn. Hello, Terry. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate seeing you here. Edmund Kaloha Parker, and I've probably butchered his middle name, was born on March 19th, 1931, in Hawaii. So Ed is 4 years older than Elvis. Elvis was born January 8th, 1935. So Ed was born March 19th, 1931 in Hawaii, and he began training in judo at an early age. So we've seen a young girl on the screen practicing some martial arts, and I'm sure Ed, as a youngster, looked a lot like that. Obviously, he wasn't a little girl, but he would have been practicing at the same age. And Ed went on to become a master in the martial arts and was known to the public at large as Mr. Karate. In the professional circles of karate and the martial arts, Ed was known to be the founder of American Kenpo Karate and was referenced as the father of American Kenpo. So Ed brought this style of karate to America. He's really the one that was teaching it here. Ed highly modified Kenpo to be a much more flexible form of martial arts, so that it was not just a ceremonial form used in martial arts competitions, in tournaments, and for ceremonies. He adapted it so that it would be truly useful as a fighting technique in a street fighting situation. He concentrated highly on self-defense, and that's one of the things that drew Elvis to him. And Keith is saying that Elvis met Ed Parker at an Elvis convention and saw him in a Pink Panther movie, and that he was a nice guy. Well, we're going to learn some more about that. Ed established his first dojo in Pasadena, California in 1956. And it would have looked a lot like this. This is a picture from that time period. And it was identifying this picture as the first dojo. I don't know if that's true, because he did have, it was like a franchise in a way. He had multiple studios. Not really a franchise because he owned them all, but like a little chain. But this is what his sign looked like, which has a uniquely oriental flair, a Japanese form on the top and the bottom, and the building itself looks to have a Japanese influence. Now, someone who knew Ed and practiced with him, learned from him, was the Black Belt Hall of Fame and champion. It was a man that was in the Black Belt Hall of Fame, and he was the champion of the first Long Beach Internationals, which were held in 1964. So this would have been a little after Elvis met Ed. But still in the middle 60s. Elvis would have been back from the Army for about 4 years at this point. And the man that knew Ed Parker and was the first Long Beach champion, Internationals champion, this was a man you probably know. And his name was Mike Stone. And Mike Stone is intimately connected to the Elvis legend, the Elvis myth. Mike Stone is infamously the man who Priscilla left Elvis to be with. So when Priscilla left Elvis, she went and lived with Mike Stone, who left his wife and young children to be with Priscilla. But this was 1964, and they had not met and begun any affair at this point in time. This is several years before that. And Mike Stone says, Mr. Ed Parker had a profound and lasting impact on me in my career in the martial arts. Mr. Parker was highly intelligent and had a keen sense of who he was. His dedication and vision of the martial arts were far-reaching. He was one of the leading forces and top pioneers of that era. Mike Stone had a lot of respect for Ed Parker. And in terms of martial arts, Mike Stone knew what he was talking about. He's in the Black Belt Hall of Fame, and he was the champion of that first Long Beach Internationals. So he was good at what he did, professionally. Now, Ed Parker described meeting Elvis, and what he said was, I was putting on a demonstration for a group of doctors at the Beverly Wilshire Health Club in 1960, when, unbeknownst to me, Elvis had heard about it and was one of the spectators. After it was over, Elvis came up to me and said, I don't think you know me, but my name is Elvis Presley. I was very humbled. And Elvis said, you're very innovative. Elvis said he studied the martial arts in Germany while in the army. And he said, I can see you're a rebel in your field. I am a rebel, just as you are. We now know from this statement by Ed that Elvis and Ed met in California at the Beverly Wilshire Health Club, where Ed was putting on demonstrations. So he was probably sparring with someone else so that people could see. He was showing his moves. He was talking about how he would perform those moves, what you needed to be able to do that. He probably was breaking some boards, breaking some concrete blocks with his hands and his fists. It's kind of what you do during a demonstration. And Elvis is in the crowd. Ed has no idea Elvis is watching. But Elvis is there because he's so intensely interested in karate. And he knows enough about it that when, even in 1960, when he approaches Ed, he says, you're very innovative. Elvis can see that what Ed's doing isn't what everybody else is doing. It's something different and something that interests Elvis. And Elvis says that not only can he see that it's different, he can see that it's flying in the face of some of the traditional teachings, which makes Ed a rebel in the field. And Elvis loves rebels because he's one too. Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Elvis is attracted to Ed because Ed's pushing the envelope of what people say can be done in this field. And Elvis himself pushed the envelope in the music and the movie and the entertainment field. And he's pushed it many times, and he's been very successful with it. And he sees success in Ed Parker's style. Now, part of Ed Parker's style is he describes every move that you make. Every karate move is a letter. And that it's not enough to just know the letters. You have to be able to form words with the letters, which means you have to be able to perform multiple strikes in a row, multiple karate moves, one after another, in a sequence that you've already practiced and know. And that's a word. And that word is formed with a single portion of your body. So if you strike someone with your left fist, in order to form a word, you have to strike them multiple times with your left fist. Now, if you strike them once with your right fist, you're starting another letter or another word. All you've got so far is one letter. When you strike them more than once with your right fist, now you have a word. You strike them with your knee. You block a blow with your leg. You formed another letter. If you do more with that particular body part, follow it up with moves that you've practiced in a sequence that you know will be effective in most cases, or that you've read the opponent and you know that this is going to be an effective sequence, then that forms a word. And when you use your entire body together, all of the pieces of your body, so you use your left hand and your right hand, your left foot and your right foot, your legs and your arms. Now you're forming full sentences. You're striking multiple times with each part, and you're putting those together into sequences so that you strike with multiple parts at one time, and now you've formed karate sentences. And this is what Ed explains when he shows how to perform karate in a demonstration. So this is kind of what Elvis is hearing. And this is an explanation unlike Elvis has ever heard before. And it makes sense to him. And it's somewhat like the way he sings his songs. You've got to string sounds together into words, and those words into sentences to form full lyrics. Now, most of the time, the lyrics are provided to you, but you have to figure out how to make the sounds that form the words into the song. So Elvis was fascinated with Master Parker's distinctive Kenpo style, especially his dynamic self-defense routines, which were extremely flexible, and you could move from one sentence to another easily. You could even change the meaning of the sentence in the middle if you were good enough at what you were doing, if you put together enough words, if you knew the sequences well enough. And so Elvis was fascinated with these unique lessons and demonstrations, which Parker utilized while he was teaching. And Gunn saying talking karate? Yes, exactly. The karate is telling your opponent a message, basically that you're going to win, that you are beating him, and that he's in pain. And you're forming the words of that sentence, one word per body part, that you strike in sequence. And when you see Parker actually do the demonstrations, it's very effective, both in what he's doing on the floor to the opponent and his communication to the audience, so that even people who don't know anything about karate, like probably you and me, we're able to pick up what he's laying down. You know, he explains it very clearly, and you can see why he was so successful as an instructor in a school setting, and how he would be able to train others to teach like him, and that they would have this style that easily invites the uninitiated into karate. And that's what you have to do in a school, because these people have to come back over and over, because that's how you make your money. They pay for each lesson. So when Master Reese says he's pulling in about $2,000 a month in the 1970s at his school, and we don't know if that's before or after expenses, but either way, it indicates that he has a very steady clientele, that he's able to also bring in people that stay and to replace those who leave. And therefore, he's able to keep his earnings, roughly the same all the time. Ed's just as good at that. Ed might even be a little better, because he's opening multiple locations. And here we can see Ed, a young Ed in 1960, along with his family. So this is the Ed that Elvis met. And you can see that Ed has a beautiful wife and 4 smiling, adorable children. And I believe his wife is also from Hawaii. This is a Hawaiian family. They live in California, or they did at the time. But I think Ed and his wife were from Hawaii. Ed definitely was. And Ed Parker said that once they began working together, he noticed some things about Elvis. And like Master Ree, Ed is an observant individual. You've got to be observant in order to be a master of karate, because you have to be able to read the opponent to know the next move that you think they're going to take, so that you can defend or attack properly, but hopefully win the fight. So your observational skills, they're highly attuned in most cases. And Ed says, I truly felt that Elvis had earned it. When he's talking about the black belt that Elvis earned from Hank Slavansky. Now, Ed actually, he recommended, after working with Elvis a little bit, that he go to Hank Slavansky to earn the first belt. And Ed says, I truly felt that Elvis had earned it. It wasn't an honorary thing. What degree he was doesn't really matter. After you die, what degree of death are you? Just leave it at this. He was a good black belt by any standards. So Ed had sent Elvis to Hank Slavansky, and he felt that the belts that Elvis earned from Hank, well, those are the real deal. And we know those are the real deal because Hank didn't just hand out belts. Hank was very tough about it. Elvis earned those belts. And then later, Kong Ree gave him a belt. Actually gave him 2. We've only talked about 1 so far. Ed Parker will give Elvis black belts. And what Ed is telling us is that while Elvis may not have been technically perfect, that he and the other masters, at least he and Kong Ree, were recognizing that Elvis was bringing something to the art, and that he understood the art very well, and they understood his professional limitations. That he couldn't be struck in the face. He couldn't perform in demonstrations and such because of that. He couldn't devote his entire life to the art as Ed and Master Ree had done. But he's also recognizing that probably just as Master Ree did, that if you get a belt from Hank Slamansky, yeah, you've earned that exactly to the standards that Hank would require. So those first two belts, absolutely, he was a good, proficient black belt, as Ed Parker says, by any standards. And then the black belts that were granted to him later that people question, Ed standing up for him, saying he truly was at this level of black belt, even if those of us who spend our entire lives doing the karate, even if he wasn't quite as technically good as us. And we've heard that reflected from Wayne Carman. He had the same kind of feeling about Elvis. That Elvis, he was putting in the work, and he had earned the respect of these people who did this, who did nothing but this. And Ed said, I noticed that Elvis needed challenges. And if he didn't have the challenges, he started deviating from keeping his weight down or what have you. He had a mind of his own. So Ed tells us something that we've heard from many others, specifically those in the inner circle, that when Elvis didn't have a current project, a challenge, and not just any project, it had to be a project that he looked forward to working on. And so in the beginning of the movie career, that was the movies. He later soured on the movies. In the beginning of his return to the stage, it was the hotel performances. Tired of those. And then it was the tour performances, where he was in huge convention centers and such. Then he tired of that because it was no longer a challenge. And Ed has noticed this same pattern. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And Gunn says that it seems a little stressed learning how to talk karate. So tomorrow, Gunn, there's going to be a post. And in that post, you're going to get to see Ed Parker. And you'll see Ed actually do a demonstration in that post. So for those of you who are wondering, what am I talking about with post? If you go underneath the video we're watching right now, you'll find a little black circle that says Hillbilly Cat History, and it's got a gold outline of a cat. That's the channel symbol. If you click on that symbol, you'll go to the channel, and you'll find selections for videos, shorts, lives, and posts. And I share knowledge with you in all four of those ways, so feel free to explore them all. But if you click on post, you can go through every post I've ever put up. Almost all of them link you to sources outside of the channel. These are the source material. And in this case, it's Ed showing you an actual demonstration, the way he would have done it. And it's from 1974. So it's while Elvis was alive. So this is exactly how he would have spoken to Elvis in that time period. But there's a lot of other stuff in those posts. A lot of hidden jewels of Elvis history. There's a few that point back to my own videos, because we have to do a little bit of self-promotion here on the channel and on YouTube. And while I mention it, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, be sure that the bell is on so that you get notifications, and that means there's no line through the bell. If you click on the bell, you can click the word all, and that means YouTube is guaranteeing that they will notify you every time I come on live. And then you'll know when I'm live. Now, does it really work every time? I don't think so. But YouTube says that it will. So we have to have some faith in the platform, because it's allowing us to have this wonderful communication with each other. So click that all, and be sure to tell everybody that you love, that loves Elvis Presley, to join us here at Hillbilly Cat History, so we can all learn more about Elvis together. And during the 1970s, Ed Parker sometimes acted as personal security for Elvis. He wasn't a direct employee, but he did work as security for Elvis in the role of a bodyguard. And Gunn's asking, did Elvis like this new type of karate, and did he learn to do it? Yeah, he loved Kempo karate, and he took a lot of lessons from Ed. In most of Elvis's style in the 70s, even as he's training with Master Ree, it's really Kenpo karate. That's what he really enjoys. And it's all about the flexibility for the real life situations, because of course Elvis is always concerned about the self-defense of himself and his bodyguards. He doesn't want Red or Sonny or anybody else getting hurt either. And in this picture we can see Ed, and he's with two very famous women, and the one on the riding on the back of one woman. So there's two women. They're in karate gis. They're obviously trying karate throws. Ed appears to be instructing them. One woman is throwing another woman. The woman that's being thrown, well, that's Lucille Ball. And the woman who's throwing her is Ethel, or her character name was Ethel, on the I Love Lucy show. And that's what this is a picture from, the I Love Lucy show. So Ed Parker was on the I Love Lucy show. At this point in time, karate is becoming very interesting to American audiences. And it's creeping into all kinds of movies and TV shows. It's very exotic, and people don't understand it, but the moves are fascinating to watch. So it's great for a visual entertainment platform like the movies or television. And Gunn saying that this new form of karate, what he's learning from Ed, would have been a new challenge for Elvis. Yes, it was. But like with all challenges, it grew old after a while. So even though he continued to practice and he loved karate and he continued to make it a part, like he said, 2 to 6 hours a day of his life. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I think we could take from that Elvis thought about karate a lot. But even it got to be old hat, and Ed would notice he didn't feel challenged by it, even though he might be challenged by the new moves that Ed's teaching, because they're constantly improving. That the improvement itself is no longer enough of a challenge for Elvis. So he starts to, as Ed notices, gain weight. Now, Ed, I believe, also has a battle of the bulge that goes on. So I think this is something else that the two of them probably bonded over. They both tended to gain weight around the middle. And even in this picture from I Love Lucy, you can see that Ed's just a little bit heavy. So I think that this is probably something the two of them talked about a lot. Don't have any evidence of that. We know some other things they talked about because Ed tells us, but Ed's mentioning the weight here. So I'm sure that Elvis talked about the weight with him. Elvis did a lot of kind of crash diets in the 1970s. So Ed may have been involved in some of those. Elvis, when he dieted, he'd like to have people around that were dieting with him so that he didn't feel he was the only one that was being kept from his favorite foods. And so Sonny West would often diet when Elvis did. I have no idea whether Ed ever did. I believe Red did a few times, and some of the other guys. But Elvis would try to get them all to do it when he was doing it. And Ed Parker described his working as a bodyguard for Elvis in this way. He said, "I was a protective companion, and I say that because I was not an employee of his. And as a result, he talked to me like you would his father. He told me his woes. He told me, 'I feel like you're a second daddy to me.'" Elvis told Ed personal secrets, things that bothered him. He asked Ed for advice, and he took that advice seriously, to the point where Elvis says, "I feel you're a second daddy to me." That Ed has the wisdom of a father. He's only 4 years older than Elvis. But Elvis sees in Ed a wisdom that he can go to, that he can tap in his time of need. And Terry says, Emma loves the show I Love Lucy. That does not surprise me. Emma does seem like someone who would love I Love Lucy. I love it too. It was a great show. You guys have never watched I Love Lucy? You just sit down and binge on it. It is an incredibly funny show. Still holds up today. And Pat says that I Love Lucy was a very popular and fantastic show. And Gunn's asking if it was in black and white. Yes, all of I Love Lucy was in black and white. And Terry's saying that she was very popular. Lucy was so popular that even after the I Love Lucy show ended, she continued to put out more sitcoms that were all basically I Love Lucy. But they no longer had Desi Arnaz. Desi was her husband. He's the actual mastermind behind the I Love Lucy show. And Desi, he got the show going. They wanted Desi, who was a band leader at the time. Desi was Cuban, so he spoke with an exotic accent, and he was extremely handsome. And so he was very photogenic, and they wanted to make this show about him. But he demanded that his wife, Lucille Ball, be allowed to be a part of the show. And the way he described it later was that I Love Lucy was never the name of the show. It was the way he felt about Lucy. And that's why it was named I Love Lucy, that it was an expression of his heart. Desi and Lucy broke up. They had marital issues, but they loved each other for their entire lives. Desi was very complimentary about Lucy for all of his life. And I think that Desi regretted the actions that he took that broke up their marriage. It was really Desi that broke it up. It's his actions that led to it. But they were very amicable, and they owned a lot of property together, including Desilu Studios. And it ended up that Lucy got all of that. So Desi was really a super stand-up guy, even though he'd done some wrong things within the marriage. And that's just a little sidelight history about I Love Lucy. And it's slightly connected to Elvis because Desilu is where the Star Trek series started. And Lucy herself greenlit the series. Without Lucy, there'd be no Star Trek. And Elvis loved Star Trek, even though people don't talk about it a lot. There's a huge number of connections between Elvis and Star Trek, and we know he even has a horse that he named Star Trek. Hi, Linda Jewell. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Now, this is a picture of Ed Parker. And there is a lady in the middle who I don't know. I believe she was like a beauty queen or had won an honor that she would be part of the presentation of this award. But the man that's standing next to her, he's another famous martial artist. That's Chuck Norris. And Chuck, he's big in the film and TV industry. And so that kind of explains how Ed gets into the TV and film industry. Not directly through Chuck Norris, but because it's very popular to do martial arts stuff at the time. So the more popular Chuck Norris makes it, the more people come to Ed wanting him in the movies. Now in this picture, we can see Ed Parker. He's over at the far left. The guy standing next to him is named Joe Louis. I'm sure he's famous, but I just don't know why or who he is. It's a failing on my part in the history. But the man standing next to him, that's Dean Martin. Okay, Dean, extremely famous individual. Dean was a favorite of Elvis's. Elvis listened to Dean singing long before Elvis became famous. And he loved Dean's style and continued to play Dean records even after Elvis became famous. So part of Elvis's jukebox always had Dean. Now, you guys may not know this, but here on YouTube, Dean's daughter, she has a YouTube channel and she does a live show every Friday. And in that live show, I believe it's in her living room, but she's got a lot of music equipment in the living room and she puts on a live musical performance every Friday on YouTube. Her name is Dina. So I think the channel is called Dina Martin. I can't remember for sure, but if you search for Dean Martin or Dina Martin, she's probably going to pop up on YouTube and you can get to her channel every Friday in the United States afternoon. I think it's about 4:00, like right after my normal show. On Friday, Dina has a live singing show and she sings a lot of her dad's songs. And Linda says that she loved Lucille Ball, and she actually saw her filming Yours, Mine, and Ours. Well, that must have been fun. And Pat says that Chuck Norris was awesome in Walker, Texas Ranger. So that show was never really my style, but the people who watch it, they love it. So, and Chuck, it was a good family show. Chuck was a man who was concerned about, and is a man that's concerned about family values. So yeah, it probably was a great show. I didn't watch much of it, I have to admit. And Gunn says that Elvis said to Dean's daughter that he called her father the King of Cool. Yes. And I believe she's told that story on her channel, too. And Marion says that Chuck Norris is well known in Germany, too, and he has great fight scenes. And I believe in the very last episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, that he's gathered a bunch of like super karate names from the karate circuit, including Bill Superfoot Wallace, and that they're all in that like last episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. So again, I've never seen that episode. I think it's the last one based on a description that Bill Superfoot Wallace gave. So if you ever get to see that episode, then you'll know some of these people, they traded blows with Elvis. Okay, now the other people that are in this picture, we talked about Dean. There's a guy standing next to Dean with sunglasses on, and he's got a big grin on his face, looks very happy. That is Bruce Lee, probably the most famous martial artist of all time. Bruce Lee. Right there with Dean Martin and Ed Parker. And Gunn says that Dina said to Elvis, "My father thinks you are the king of rock." And Elvis said to Dina, "I think your father is the king of cool." And Gunn says that she also thinks Dean was real cool. And Marion says she loves Dean Martin's voice. And Gunn questions whether Marion loves Dean's looks too. He was a very handsome individual. And Pat says that's Bruce Lee, like she wouldn't have guessed. Yep, very innocuous. But that is Bruce Lee in this picture. Now, the man that's standing next to Bruce Lee in the all-white suit with the black turtleneck shirt, that is Mike Stone. That is the man that Priscilla left Elvis to be with, Mike Stone. And I just felt like this was such an interesting picture because it has Ed and Mike, who are connected so closely to the Elvis myth. We've got Dean, who Elvis loved. I'm sure this other guy is famous too, and I should have looked him up more than just his name, but Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee is now in this picture with these other people. I'm sure that Elvis would have loved to meet Bruce Lee. I don't know if he ever did. Now, someone else, so Ed, he employed other martial artists the same way that Master Ree employed Bill Superfoot Wallace to teach classes. Basically, these guys would pay the martial artist less than they pulled in for the class, and that way they made money from their building all the time, even if they couldn't be there. And they could run more classes, and they could just increase profits altogether. And Bill Superfoot Wallace felt like this was very lucrative for him, even though he didn't own the business. Just getting paid to do the lessons was very lucrative. And of course, whatever these guys that are getting paid are making, obviously the people who own the place are making more. So like Ed Parker and Connery. One of the people that works for Ed Parker is Dave Hebler. So Elvis meets Elvis meets Dave when he comes to visit Ed in the later 1960s. And that's the first time that Elvis and Dave meet. And that's how Dave ends up joining the Elvis inner circle. Elvis is very impressed by Dave. Dave is very, very fast. He can strike multiple times in a very short period of time, and he's faster at it than even Ed Parker. So Dave is very impressive. And Elvis sees that as a skill that would be very useful as a bodyguard. So Elvis eventually employs Dave as a bodyguard, but it starts with Ed Parker. And Linda saying, wow, great photo of these 5 gentlemen. And Terry saying that he has now found Dina Martin's channel, her YouTube channel. It looks fantastic. So yeah, guys, I encourage you to check that out. Just another connection back to Elvis, the daughter of a man that Elvis loved, who's continuing her father's legacy. And she also met Elvis, as Gunn has now revealed to us. Now, someone that Ed also employed, other than Dave Hebler, was Mike Stone, the man in this picture. And Mike Stone said, Mr. Parker invited me to teach at his Kenpo karate headquarters in Pasadena, California. I lived at his home for 6 months and was honored to be part of his ohana, which is a word that means family. Ed Parker allowed me to teach tournament fighting strategy and techniques in his noon and 1 o'clock classes. So, just to go over the important points of this again, for Mike's teaching at perhaps the building that we just showed, the Kenpo headquarters in Pasadena, California. Ed Parker's Kenpo headquarters. And Mike lives in Ed's house with Ed's family, the family we just saw, for 6 months. And they treated him as family. And he taught the 12 o'clock and the 1 o'clock classes at the school. The noon and the 1 o'clock. So Ed helped Mike a lot. And Linda's saying, any chance that's Dean Martin's son in the picture? No, it's a guy named Joe Lewis, who I think might be another martial artist. It's Lewis. So it's, I can't remember if that's spelled the same way as the famous boxer or not, but this is not the famous boxer. But I think just from the breadth of his shoulders that either that or he might be a singer, but he's not Dean's son, no. According to the picture caption, he was Joe Lewis. Of course, that's the picture caption. I don't recognize him. And hello, the Cali girl, LA. Appreciate seeing you here. Now, Ed Parker, he had a minor career as a Hollywood actor and a stuntman, and his acting work included the uncredited role of Mr. Chong in Blake Edwards' Revenge of the Pink Panther, and again, in Curse of the Pink Panther. Ed Parker also trained the star of the Pink Panther, Peter Sellers, in Kenpo Karate. Now, if you're a big Elvis fan, and you know about his movie nights, the midnight movie showings when he would rent the theaters and stay all night with groups of his friends, watching movies, sometimes the same movie over and over, Elvis loved the Pink Panther. He was huge into Peter Sellers. So the fact that Ed had connections to the Pink Panther and Peter Sellers, well, that had to be a huge piece of why Elvis was so attracted to Ed Parker. Like, this was a big deal. And of course, Ed didn't have those connections when they met. That would have been something later. But can you imagine when they got back together and Elvis said, Ed, I saw you in the Pink Panther movie. And they began to talk about Peter Sellers. That must have been a great conversation. And that Elvis would have been so excited about it. And unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave it for today. I do have more to talk about with Ed Parker. We've barely scratched the surface. And we're just now really kind of getting an overview of Ed. We're not really sinking deeply into any of the relationship between Ed and Elvis yet. We're just trying to get an idea of who Ed is as a person so that we can spiral in like we do with all of the people that enter the story, as we did with Master Reed. And we'll learn more and more about Ed and get an idea of the things that he and Elvis talked about. Some of those things I think you guys are going to find fascinating because they have nothing to do with karate or music or anything we've ever talked about as a group. So that will be in an upcoming episode. And until I see you all again, I'm going to tell you all to keep on taking care of business. And I'm going to play us this song about Elvis. He gave away his heart.
Midnight lights, rhinestone fire, Arabian suit, burning with desire. He hit the stage like thunder rolls. Vegas shook and the story unfolds. Charlie's birthday, crowd went wild. He cracked a joke and sang with style. But just before he sang "Hurt So Deep," he stopped the show and made us weep. He gave away his heart, not just a song, diamonds and gold, where the love belongs. Rings and shades from the man backstage. He healed the broken, he lit the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I saw it all that night. Blackened hair, the man stepped near. Elvis smiled, the crowd could hear. Thanks to you, we raised the light. 17,000 hearts took flight. Then back behind the velvet door, he gave away a little more. Music ring, a boxcar shine, a suit that held his sacred time. He gave away his heart, not just a song, diamonds and gold, where the love belongs. Rings and shades from the man backstage. He healed the broken, he lit the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I saw it all that night. He didn't need applause to know his worth. He gave away his soul in Vegas mirth. Not just a king, but something more. A man who knew what hearts were for. Gave away his heart, not just a soul. Pieces of love where the brave belong. Ritual gifts from the man backstage. He saved the hurting, hid the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I'll never be the same. I was there, I saw the rings, I saw the light. Gave gave away his heart, and it burned so bright.